December 4th to order, and if you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of Michigan and to the state for which it stands, two beautiful peninsulas united by a bridge of steel, where equal opportunity and justice to all is our ideal. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Here.
Spolman.
Here.
Ingalls.
Here.
Meinhardt.
Here.
Mayor Filkins.
Here. Okay, at this time, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Councilmember Spolman.
Here.
Ingalls.
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Meinhardt.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Almost here.
This time, we'll open the floor for public comments.
Stop multitasking.
Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Support.
Councilmember Ingalls.
Yes.
Meinhardt.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries. And that takes us to an appointment this evening, or some appointments this evening.
It's being recommended to approve the reappointment of Ann Ingalls to the Historic Districts Commission for a 3-year term to expire on December 31st, 2020.
I think Ann's doing a wonderful job. I'd just like to throw that out. But I'll make a motion to approve the reappointment of Ann Ingalls to the Historic District Commission for a 3-year term to expire on December 31st, 2020.
Support.
I think she's doing a fine job, too, and I appreciate her serving since 2015. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Meinhardt.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries. Now, the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The first item under the City Manager's report this evening is with respect to a request from the Cadillac Wexford Public Library for the city to authorize a MERS participation agreement for their healthcare savings plan for their new Public Library Technology Director position. The Library Board back in November passed a motion to establish a healthcare savings plan account for their technology director position. And because the library is a division at the Municipal Employees Retirement System, or MERS, under the city council is required to approve the participation agreement. There is no cost to the city, and all costs are on the actual library's employee accordingly. The packet includes a copy of what we received from the library. Should you have any questions, Owen or I could do our best to answer them.
Those are good programs, so I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the MERS participation agreement for the healthcare savings plan for the Cadillac Wexford Public Library Technology Director position.
Support.
Councilmember Shippers.
Yes.
Spolman.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Meinhardt.
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item, short-term rental update, is something that I thought it would be appropriate for us to bring back this evening, simply for information purposes. This is something that the City Council took a position on several months ago with respect to position of opposition against losing local control. The state legislature is currently looking at legislation, or I should say has legislation before them, with respect to potentially removing local authority from municipalities from being able to adjudicate issues on short-term rentals. Should this use, be allowed, and if so, where and how should permitting be set up, and rather the state might essentially just take that control away from municipalities and have a statewide process that everybody would have to follow. That determination has not yet been made. There hasn't been a whole heck of a lot of movement since it was requested by the Michigan Municipal League that municipalities take a position on the local control issue. It's something that I couldn't tell you exactly when that's going to come out, but I suspect that it might be something that the legislature takes up yet before the end of the year. It's something that tends to happen at the end of the calendar year. There are things that just come back around and get pushed through after lengthy midnight kind of discussions. So I thought that, thinking that perhaps this may be something that gets more attention in Lansing before the end of the calendar year, it might be a good opportunity this evening to just kind of hear some of the pros and cons about short-term rental housing, but from John Wallace, our Community Development Director, so that when this item does come back to the City Council, for us to really get into how we best want to look at it from a policy perspective. Some of the foundation regarding the issue has already been laid out. So that's, again, the purpose of what we're doing tonight. It's simply just sharing information and doing it in a public manner. The presentation is also in the public packet as well. So, John?
Thanks, Marcus. Tonight's presentation will be relatively brief, and as Marcus said, to just sort of introduce the item. We will not be getting into how to regulate or whether if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. Tonight's presentation is merely what it is, and some of the pluses and minuses of dealing with short-term rental housing. And that brings to what is short-term rental housing. Short-term rentals are generally defined as the rental of a residential property, and this might be a full house, a condominium, could be just a room, garage apartment, etc., for periods of less than 30 days. There are basically two types of short-term rental housing. One is where there would be a direct leasing by the property owner, and also under this one it would also possibly be by the property owner's leasing agent if it were, say, a realtor or something like that. The second form is leasing by the property owner through the use of an online rental platform, and the most common would be Airbnb. But you also have VRBO, which is, I think, generally involved in more full house, complete house rental, and then also a company named FlipKey. And what do Airbnb, VRBO, and other online platforms do? They're essentially, they act as online marketplaces, and they connect travelers with local hosts. And those platforms would enable hosts to list their available space and collect rent, and have travelers easily book their stays in private homes. Our short-term rental housing units currently addressed in the Cadillac zoning ordinance, with the exception of the TS2 zoning district, they are not addressed. They are neither expressly permitted nor prohibited in the zoning ordinance. And that down the line will become the essential issue as maybe there's a demand to have more of these. Will we be regulating them? And then how so? What will be permitted? What will be not permitted? The issue really is somewhat complex one, and everything I put up here, while it's fairly comprehensive, I'm sure there's some other issues that come up with short-term rentals that I don't have here, but these are the ones that are commonly surface in articles on the subject. What are the benefits of short-term housing rentals for the property owner? Extra income, higher income than traditional long-term rental, preservation of property in an which is enhanced over a long-term rental, perhaps more money to maintain the structure, tax breaks, and community promotion through promoting tourism. So those are some of the things, and one of the big ones here would be extra income. We're seeing much more so that a lot of people who are struggling to stay in maybe their own unit, looking for ways to expand their income. How can they do that, stay in place and still afford where they're at? And of course, short-term rental is one real good way to do that. What would be the benefits of short-term rental for the renter? One would be savings of money, an opportunity to live in your own temporary furnished home, fully equipped kitchens, more space and privacy, and a more intimate local experience. Whereas sometimes with hotels and so forth, you might be outside the particular area you're trying to get to know or to learn within the community. What are the benefits of short-term rental housing for the city of Cadillac? Support of tourism, provide more authentic local Cadillac experience, increased market exposure for the city, and create a hospitality image for the city. And what would be some of the concerns regarding short-term rental housing? And these are as important as the pluses, because it'll be what surfaces if we do consider adopting of an ordinance. These would be some of the concerns that would come forward from the public. Noise and loud parties, whether it be indoor or outdoor, lack of on-site or nearby management, potential parking problems, reduction in availability of long-term housing rentals. That's one that comes up quite a bit, where there's a real shortage of general long-term rentals. How many of those units are taken up by short-term rentals? Lack of knowledge on the rental tenants, and this tends to be more when it's a direct lease arrangement rather than Airbnb, which has its own kind of self-policing type system. Potential to change a quiet residential character to something that maybe isn't quite so quiet, and fiscal impacts to commercial hotels and motels. And finally, as we take all those issues and try to put it into, okay, now what do we have to do? If we wanted to consider putting something in the zoning ordinance, we would certainly have to think about how we would want to manage both the short-term rental of rooms, where somebody is on site and just wanting to maybe lease one or two of their rooms, and also how we would want to manage full house rental, two very different things in terms of potential impacts. There's some similarities, but there's also some differences. What would be the required management for the short-term rentals? Typically in the house rental, where somebody's living in the house with for the rooms that are being rented, it's on-site management. But it becomes really important how you manage the unit when you do not have an on-site manager in the house being rented. Where should the short-term rentals be permitted? Should it be something that's decided based on zoning district? Should there be density parameters or spatial separation parameters that if one is allowed in one location, another one can't repeat for a certain distance? All of those types of issues would have to be addressed. should there be a number of day per year limitation? Some communities adopt such a standard, saying maybe you can lease a unit, but no more than some number, maybe 90 days or something like that per year. So we would have to see if that's something that made any sense at all. We would have to monitor the market on our long-term rental housing, consider what the impacts to our long-term rental housing would be, and then come up with the right balance of use of short-term rentals with long-term rentals. Certainly, the impacts to the hotels and motels. There may be some impact there, and obviously, in some cases, there will be some people who almost exclusively stay at, say, an Airbnb and wouldn't be a natural consideration for a hotel or a motel. So I don't know that all the people who would stay at a short-term rental you could subtract from the population base that would be in the more commercial hotel or motel, but at some level that's probably going to be true. And then private property rights. Folks that aren't particularly big on big government or more government intrusion will say, well, I bought this property. I have a right to be able to do certain things, and I certainly have a right to try to make money off of the property at some level if I'm investing and paying taxes. So you get into that. And, of course, the whole animal of zoning gets into property rights. So it's nothing new from a city perspective. We would be looking at this like we do so many issues in zoning, trying to balance not being too intrusive with also trying to protect the rights of people for general enjoyment of their property. So that's basically the presentation. You can read, countless articles on this, and you'll see many articles that are really pro short-term rental, some that are opposed. It'll all depend on the stance of where people are coming from. Are they hotel owners? Are they people who just really enjoy quiet? Or just so many different ways you can come at this issue. And so it will be a complex one, and it will be one if we pursue. We probably would want to do a fair amount of public outreach just so that we can really kind of get a take on where we feel the community is on this subject. And that's all I have on it.
Thank you, John. And I think that is a perfect segue for me to kind of iterate what I said before. It's because there are so many layers to this that I'd prefer that we don't necessarily spin our wheels if in the short term Lansing is going to say, thanks, but we're going to take it from here and we're going to remove the local control authority on this type of issue. That being said, John and I have spoken about, well, how long do we wait? Because this could be sat on for forever, frankly. And at some point or another, the city should have this conversation because we want to be accommodating, or at least make it known what our position is if we're not going to be accommodating to these types of uses down the road. And so we certainly want to continue to take this wait-and-see approach through the new year to see if something should pop up. But perhaps if come spring there doesn't appear to be any movement, we then will bring this issue back and we can talk about a schedule for implementing our public process and getting the conversation going with the community as to how best to make the approach. So.
I have a question. Is there any way to access what sort of things the state is throwing around? So if we do spend time on this, we at least try to be compliant with what may come down the way?
Oh, certainly. The draft legislation's all available online.
Yeah.
I don't recall the names of the bills, otherwise I would share them with you publicly right now. I believe this is going to inevitably be in front of the local government committee, subcommittee as well, for them to make a recommendation on before it goes back for being cleaned up in an eventual vote. But we can see where they're at with it. And what's caused municipalities pause is because part of what they were talking about was essentially stripping out the ability for municipalities at the local level from having a program in place. So it was going to be a state licensing program, and then
That
they
would
were
be
going
it.
to dictate exactly. So not much different than perhaps the smoking laws that are on the books, where it's governed by the state. So
Right.
Have we had any, how many issues have we had related to this? Because we don't have an ordinance in place.
We're aware of a few of these that are operating today. We've told those folks accordingly that they're operating at their own risk, while we're currently not enforcing anything because we don't have anything specifically on the books to enforce. There could be a point in time where the city does make a policy determination, and there are going to be or there will be an ordinance that's approved, and that may or may not be in conflict with what their future bookings may or may not be. So
Have we had anybody complaining?
we had one
Did once.
complaint.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. And since
From a
then,
neighbor?
yeah, one complaint from a neighbor. And at the same time, we've also had feedback provided from another neighbor of where one of these exists that was very positive.
Okay.
So, relatively speaking, very minimal outreach has been received by the city on this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's
Thank
good
you.
to keep it in front of us. It's important stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a meaty issue, same as medical marijuana. It's going to be a meaty issue, and it'll be a similar process as well. So, if I may, Mayor? So under adoption of ordinances and resolutions, we have a couple of items this evening. The first one is a request to adopt a resolution to terminate the dispatch agreement with Wexford County. This is an item that everyone should be somewhat familiar with. We received just this past summer correspondence from the county. I did print out copies for everybody to have, and I can give you a copy, Chris, as well, of a letter from the county essentially identifying the reasons why they would like to terminate the dispatch agreement currently. And just for background purposes and for the sake of the public, we have a centralized dispatching service in place currently with Wexford County. Wexford County dispatches all 911, police, fire, and medical for all of the municipal entities within the county. It's, I think, a very progressive way of doing business. It centralizes the government service so that there isn't duplicity between all of the different organizations, and the city is a part of that. None of that is going to be changing, even though the agreement that's in place will no longer be in place. The agreement that's in place was really never fully implemented, as the letter in front of you illustrates. Both parties being the county and the city, agree that it would be in all of our best interests to just simply put the agreement off to the side. The services are not going to change. Once this happens, they will continue to occur as they occurred today. And so the appropriate action at this time would be to essentially consider approving the resolution that's in your packet that will basically exit us out of the agreement. That resolution, once approved, will be shared with the county clerk, and then we assume that they too will be passing a very similar resolution to do the same.
I'm wondering if this is the right letter. This letter
Did I give you the wrong letter?
says,
That was
let's
the
have a
original.
meeting, but I think there was a letter in September, the beginning of September, that followed up after your meeting saying that we've kind of come, we had a good meeting, we've come to the agreement that it.
Yeah, you're right. I printed out the wrong one. I apologize. Chris,
I
I'm
just
not
don't
going
want
to give
you
you
to
this one.
give it to Chris with it, yeah, we've seen it, but
Yep. Yeah, I meant to have the letter in your packet, and I realized just before the meeting it wasn't, so I thought I printed the right one, but I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution to terminate the dispatch agreement with the county.
Support.
Councilmember Spelman.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Meinhardt.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. And I just need a quick second to look something up. So the next and final item under adoption of ordinances and resolutions is with respect to resolution of support for funding at the Kenwood Beach Boat Launch Pavilion and Playground to construct the new restroom. This is for a grant that we had received, and this is a necessary step with respect to that process. The copy of the resolution is in your packet, and I was looking for the date range. And I'm not sure if I see that in here, but I wanted to share publicly that this is a project that we are finally excited to be able to move forward on. We were notified quite some time ago about the grant award, but then that started the analysis phase of making sure that there was nothing historic in nature with the current bathroom facilities that are there before they are able to get demolished.
Those are historic.
Yes, yeah, they're not historic.
So are the new bathroom facilities going to be located where the present ones are
Yes.
at? Okay.
Yes,
So in here, it says we need to appropriate all funds by June 30th, 2020. Is that what you're looking for?
well, so Owen might have a better answer than I. What I need tonight is adoption of the resolution of support. We will likely end up doing a budget amendment, I'm assuming, to appropriate the funds, or?
So we have in our fiscal year 18 budget, the full $160,000 appropriated for the cost. And then as far as revenue goes, we have an $80,000 grant revenue appropriated in the general fund, and then an $80,000 line item called local funds. So that was, at the time we were going through the budget, we said we'll need to identify the source of these funds, once the grant agreement comes through and all of those things. So we have sufficient reserves in a couple of locations that are specifically targeted for these. We can use some of our general fund as well as some of the capital projects fund, which is what we talked about as part of the budget process. So we have the expenditure appropriated already, so we plan on building the thing in the spring.
This
and
next
hopefully-
spring?
Yeah, yep. So here shortly, now that this is all approved and we have the paperwork, we'll get to work on the design and then get it bid out so that it can be built in time for use next summer.
Great.
So we have the appropriation.
It's nice that we were able to secure this grant for $80,000.
It
Definitely.
is very nice, yep.
And the project period is that it has to be completed by June of 2020, June 30th.
So we'll blow that out of the
No
water.
reason to wait, in my opinion. No reason
Yeah,
to wait. Let's
yeah,
get it done.
We've got the,
Yep, got the
Let's
money,
do it.
let's get it done. And it's an exciting project that really
It's
needs, really
very
needs to
badly
happen.
needed.
So,
yes. That so many of our local people use that area as well as visitors, so we want to spiff that up for them. Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution of support for funding at the Kenwood Beach Boat Launch Pavilion Playground to construct the new restroom.
Support.
Councilmember Ingalls.
Yes.
Meinhardt.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Spelman.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, this evening, we do have the minutes and reports of, just the elected officials compensation commission. And if you read your packet, you're not getting a raise this year.
I read that. I was
So-
disappointed in that, but
We just got one last time around, though.
I
so-
understand.
I was disappointed that there were only 2 people on this committee, actually. I know
There's-
that there are
there's-
spots open. Well, 2 showed up. I guess there are 3.
There's 3.
2 spots open. 2
Yeah.
spots open still.
Yeah.
We appreciate them.
Yes, we do. Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor for the second public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move to the good of the order if anyone has anything.
I got a few things I'll report on. I attended the legislative update last Friday from the chamber, and Senator Boer and Representative Hoytinga spoke about what they're working on right now. The short-term rental was not on either one of their lists, but you'd never know what happens, at the end of the year either, when they feel like they want to get a lot of things done. But it's kind of interesting. I also had a Lake Mitchell Improvement Board meeting last month and have another one this week. Just taking a look at wrapping up this current year and moving forward with treatment plans for Lake Mitchell. Everything looks really good there, and the budget looks really good. And I attended the MSU Extension training on the Michigan medical marijuana legislation last week. And, I really wanted to do this just because I didn't know very much about it. And I appreciated the session that we had when we were down in Holland, but it was really, I felt kind of one-sided from the enforcement perspective. It was the Rocky Mountain Enforcement Group, and I needed to know more about what the Michigan legislation was about. And as you probably learned today, Laura just came out with a lot of
Emergency rules.
yeah, the emergency rules as we get really close to the date when we're going to be accepting applications throughout the state. So I appreciate the information you've been forwarding us, Marcus. The MML put that guide together, and that was exactly what I wanted to see, because that's like a really nice synopsis of the pros and the cons and what we have to look for if we do opt in, and what type of conversations we need to have and what we look forward to. One of the takeaways from the session that I attended for me was the importance of getting public input as we move forward with the process. So I just kind of want to put that out there. If we do start to think that we're going to entertain opting in for this, we probably want to make sure that we have a community conversation about it. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have something. We interviewed and have appointed 2 new members to the Mayor's Youth Council, welcoming Kenzie Foreman and Alden McCoy to join the group. Also, we had a meeting, the mayor and I had a meeting with members from the JCs to look at expanding our relationship with them in terms of education and some other things for the Youth Council. So that was nice. I was glad that those folks came out, and we're going to be going to visit them and do a presentation, I believe, on Wednesday when they have their meeting. Also, excuse me, the Youth Council's meeting is usually the 3rd Wednesday of the month, which would be the 20th, but due to the holidays, etc., that meeting will be on December 13th instead of the 20th. And at that time, we'll be swearing in the new members. So that's at 4 o'clock if anyone wants to come out. And if there are any other parents out there or grandparents or youth members that are interested, you can be a member of the Youth Council if you're a resident of the city or a resident of the townships as well. So, thank you.
I just want to say that the city parks the lights up in the tree. Appreciate all the work that everyone had done to get them up, and they look good.
Marcus, did you have anything else?
I just wanted to mention along those same lines, big thank you to everybody to get the plaza and all the holiday decorations all over the community up. I think they look great. The skate Cadillac is down, the synthetic ice rink. You do use regular ice skates, and would encourage folks to come on out and give it a try. We're also working on getting some holiday music piped in to the sound system that's down at the plaza, and hopefully some point later this week or early next, that'll be up and running. So there'll be some additional ambiance in the background.
And when will you be running that? That's consistently 24 hours a day, or?
No. I couldn't tell you exactly, but we're testing out a timer system, so it'll maybe go on for a couple hours midday around the lunch hour, and then a few hours at night around the dinner hour and a little after. So,
Okay,
yeah.
great.
But it's all about whether or not the technology will work. So,
Okay, good. I had the opportunity to travel to Detroit over Thanksgiving with the Cadillac Marching Vikings, and Cadillac was incredibly well represented by that group of young people, but there was also a tremendous amount of support and visibility of the residents of Cadillac who were down in Detroit as well. So it was a great day. So, okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Okay, can somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Do we?
No, I think you just adjourned the meeting.
yeah.
Oh.
You just hit your hammer on that thing and say we're
Okay,
adjourned.
so I get to do that. I don't know why I was thinking that.
Planning Commission does it a little different.
That's why.
Motion to adjourn.
Let's call this one.
Thank you.